Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Early, and I am very excited to be moderating from GuideStar's Virginia headquarters. We welcome you to this exclusive sneak peek of the new GuideStar nonprofit profile pages. Today, our Director of Design and Product Marketing Manager will be discussing how the redesigned nonprofit profiles were created to help you understand key nonprofit performance questions. Our presenters will be in conversation for about 30 minutes, and we have blocked off about 10 minutes at the end of today's event to answer any additional questions. We do want to make sure to address any and all questions you might have about the new pages. So if for some reason we're not able to get to all of them today, we will follow up with you via email within a few days. Don't worry if you missed a point or were unable to write down a note. We are recording today's event as mentioned, and you'll receive that recording via email within a few days, so you can watch and listen to it as many times as you like. And with that, I'm now thrilled to introduce today's presenters, our very own Sarah Madden and Krystal Kavney, who join us from GuideStar's San Francisco office. Sarah Madden is GuideStar's Director of Design, and she has spearheaded the responsive redesign of GuideStar's nonprofit profile. Her work focuses on visualizing information to facilitate decision-making with an emphasis on making data accessible and engaging. Prior to joining GuideStar's team, Sarah created interactive tools and web apps in the fields of education and urban planning. She holds an SCP from MIT and a BA from the University of California, Berkeley. Our other presenter, Krystal Kavney, is GuideStar's Product Marketing Manager and leader on the team responsible for telling the world the story of GuideStar products. While working directly with many of GuideStar's clients, she gained experience to craft the strategy around messaging and marketing to improve customer satisfaction. She has focused her education and career on business, design, and social impact, and has served on the boards of several nonprofits. All right, Sarah and Krystal, I know the select group is anxious to see what GuideStar is up to lately. Take it away, ladies.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for that great introduction. So today, Sarah and I are going to discuss GuideStar's newly redesigned nonprofit profiles. First, I hope to get into the design process, and then Sarah's going to give us a demo of the new profile pages, and we will finish up with some questions from the audience moderated by Ashley. So let's get started with some context. Sarah, will you tell us about the nonprofit profile redesign project?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. This is a great intro. I'm really excited to be here. So for a while, we've been thinking about how GuideStar's website can be a stronger tool for the nonprofit sector and everyone involved with it, and especially how we can start to help compare the work that nonprofits do. So we know that one of the challenges in the sector, and also one of the things that makes the sector so amazing, is that there's such a diversity of nonprofit organizations out there. And the work that all of these groups do is just so incredibly different. But it remains so difficult to compare the activities and performance of different organizations. So let's see. Historically, historically I'm showing an image of the 990 in a particularly messy form. But historically, we've struggled to compare and judge organizations, and we often use calculations like the overhead ratio that can sometimes lead us to a simplistic picture. So the question we've been asking ourselves is how to push the nonprofit profile pages to better answer key questions and challenge ourselves to design that next generation of profiles. So some of the questions, starting with this 990 and the information that we draw from this is, how do we make the pages more informative or easier to use and with a great user experience that works beautifully on modern devices, especially since there are so many of them at this point in time?
So this is obviously a big step for GuideStar. What were some of the drivers for this project?
Yeah, it's a great question. So historically, we started out by digitizing these 990s, shown on the screen here, and making that available for all sorts of types of analysis. And over time, the pages grew into having a lot of additional information added. So I'm showing on the left here a picture of a current nonprofit profile page for GuideStar, and on the right is the new design. But what I wanted to mention is the left side, we kind of grew into this design where suddenly we had information separated into 8 sections, and it was getting a little bit unsustainable in terms of how do we keep shoehorning pieces of information in here. And we asked ourselves, is this the right way to frame pieces? So the biggest thing that we landed on with this new beta release of profile pages is thinking about how do we group information into 4 sections, and what feels like a more intuitive way to quickly, at a glance, scan the story of a nonprofit organization in whatever form that may take, which led us to group the data into a summary section, programs and results, financial information, and operations. So that's sort of where we landed. And, a big focus of this was, you asked about drivers. We asked ourselves, what are the questions that people wish GuideStar asked? And one of the guides here was this book by David LaPiana called Nonprofit Strategy Revolution, which really helped guide our thinking on, asking, are we answering the most pressing questions, and what is the best way to present information on this enormously diverse sector? So I'd say that was the first primary driver, just this moment of introspection for GuideStar. And a second driver I want to mention is we wanted to think about how to encourage nonprofit organizations to get more involved and to claim their profile and to keep their information up to date. And so a big part of that was making it more appealing and more accessible design-wise for nonprofits to, quote, own their profiles and enter quantitative and qualitative information on their profiles. So the reasoning here is that everybody benefits from having more up-to-date information there, and we really hope to see the profiles grow into a tool that nonprofit organizations also use as a way to benchmark themselves and learn from other peer organizations that are out there and are similar. So that's something that we're really excited about. Okay, let me just quickly answer or add in 2 other drivers. So third, we thought about audience. So we know that we have a huge audience of really casual users and groups from nonprofits that are just trying to figure out, where they stand, and then expert analysts on the other. So huge credit to you all on the expert analyst side who are extremely good at using these pages as they have morphed into a really complex form, but we're also trying to think about how to make that a little bit simpler overall. And then the last driver I'll mention is behind the scenes. We wanted to improve performance, and that meant doing a lot of work on our back-end architecture and really streamlining some of the processes there that had also really grown over time. And our databases are enormous. There's so much information. So that was a pretty tremendous undertaking. And then on the user experience side, we took the dive into a responsive redesign. So trying to think about how to make these pages work beautifully on different devices and be accessible. And that's been a huge learning process and a really valuable one for the whole organization, but definitely a challenge.
Yeah, this has been a huge project. So let's look back. Let's talk about the early days of the redesign. What did the process look like?
Okay, this is a fun one. So I've got some pictures from kind of going back in time. And of course, we started with a 990, which can be a bear. And the irony here is, of course, I love to use this diagram of what the design process looks like, which is similarly messy. So, we have this moment of doing a ton of research and interviews and talking to our users and experts to try to figure out what patterns we can tease out, and then we get towards a concept, and then eventually, as we get some more clarity, move towards a design. So, in the early days, we started with a lot of interviews with experts and finding out what those top questions are and reading through Nonprofit Strategy Revolution to really frame how we wanted to think about this. So here's an early mind map diagram showing some of that complexity. And then we started to really analyze that content, what data we have, and really digging deep on the historical information we have about nonprofit organizations and wondering how that can be helpful. And then it was into, wireframing and design studios to get feedback and whiteboarding and brainstorming and, challenging each other to think about things in more visual ways and exposing some of that data into interactive visualizations and fighting with the code and more reviewers. and so on and so forth. So this is one little moment that I think is interesting as we wondered about how to display financial revenue and expenses information. That turned into a good candidate for a really interactive, time-based visualization. So that went through, early version, updated kind of visualization with more, teasing out pieces on the side, which I'll show you the interactive soon, but in landing on a final design. So this has been a very iterative process.
Well, thank you for really sharing about that process. It's really fascinating. So I'm really excited to show our audience where we ended up. So what are the results?
Yeah, all right, let's jump over. And let me know that you're seeing this okay.
Yes, it looks great.
Great. So I just loaded up. We have so many organizations, and I chose just one that I'm going to focus on today to show how the pages look, and that's the American Red Cross. And I'm showing a current view of someone who is not logged in. This is an unregistered view. The main thing I wanted to point out on this page is we have a bar at the bottom of the page that tells you that we've just launched the beta version, and if you wanted to click the blue button at the bottom, you would be taken to the beta version for this page. You can go ahead and do this for any organization that you look up on GuideStar, and we heartily encourage you to do so because that will also lead you to a way to give us feedback.
So this is how it looks right now before the actual launch of the new pages.
That's right.
Great.
That's right. And this is how you would get to look to a new page. So let me just jump over. And so again, here's the American Red Cross page. I'm viewing it as a free basic user right now. And I wanted to first point this out just as, this is for someone who hasn't created an account yet. They're still getting a fair bit of information before, so that gives a sense of what this organization is about. So loosely, organization is grouped into these 4 sections: summary, programs and results, financials and operations, and there's also a side nav on the side. And in the summary section, the goal here was to think about what information gives you a quick sense of who they are. And really to frame that question. I'm just going to give a quick scan, and we'll do a deeper dive into more advanced.
That sounds great.
Version. So, jumping to programs and results. This is pretty what you would expect. It's about how the organization makes a difference. So, information about impact statement and programs, some other pieces, and financials is where the product levels really start to differ. We offer some information after a user creates an account, but again, this is really where the subscription levels pay off.
So can we take a look now at what a user who has GuideStar Premium or GuideStar Pro subscription would see?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me jump over here. This is a lot meatier information. Okay, so first thing to notice is that we've got a toolbar up top for some of the Pro Search tools, starting to think about how to consolidate that and make that easier to use. And I'll also point out we're actually currently this week working on this section and keep cleaning up the user experience a little, so that may change a little bit. This user is this user is me, shown up top, and I am a charity check subscriber as well. So some of that is showing up front, where you can immediately tell that this organization is verified on IRS Pub 78 and also on the BMF. Those are some quick at-a-glance items. And we've also highlighted that the American National Red Cross is a GuideStar Gold level participant. So that means that they've taken ownership over their profile and updated a lot of the qualitative information as well. Okay, let's dive in. Or go ahead.
Yeah, immediately, this is an amazing, very different look and feel to the other pages.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's pretty interesting just to think about how we got here. It's really all the creative decisions and the design decisions tie in with the back-end structure of the data and the questions about what are those, what do users need to discover about groups. So we've been trying to respond to that as carefully as we can, and it's still very iterative, so now is the time to weigh in with feedback. So let me talk a little about the summary section for the Red Cross here. So one of the things we heard again and again from both expert users and nonprofit organizations was to highlight the mission statement front and center. And so we've chosen to group, to add in some information about what are their main programs, what are revenue and expenses at a glance over time for this organization. Wow, look at how things have jumped up in 2006 or I think that's after Katrina, and some other timeline pieces here where you can start to get a little bit more of a sense of change over time.
Now, did I see the numbers at the bottom change?
Yes, that's right.
Over?
And I do hope this is translating well over WebEx, so I encourage you to take a look on your own later. But yes, this is interactive, and you can hover over individual bars and see how the specific values change. And the same goes for, over here, we wanted to highlight some quick at-a-glance information. So, of course, you can jump right in and go straight for that 990, but we've also done a lot of work to expose some of those really good nuggets of information right up front so that you're spared from, possibly very messy 990 form, which, of course, certainly there's a time and a place, but we wanted to think about what would be useful to have up front. So things like how old is this organization, who is the leader, how many employees have they had over time. And this is another interactive one where you can see how the groups have changed, just how large they are, and other contact information, cause area, and some nuts and bolts filing requirements. So that's sort of the summary, is trying to give you that at-a-glance view. Let me jump into programs and results. So this has a big focus on impact statement and also programs information. So this is a place where the information is drawn directly from the nonprofit, and we've included more information that attribution for a lot of these sources. So you can tell immediately whether something is pulled from the 990 or PF or whatever the IRS form variant may be, or if it's been updated directly by the nonprofit. And these are descriptions where, it looks like actually the Red Cross punted a little bit, and they haven't uploaded too much information here. Instead, they're asking you to visit their site, so fair enough. And then they also have on the right-hand side a chance to upload things like annual reports or social media handles or information about their funding needs. So that's one. Oh, and then let me scroll down a little. There's also a section where they can upload photos, and we have some external reviews from great nonprofits. And one of the coolest parts of this page, in my opinion, is a piece of information that we hadn't really been highlighting in the past, and that's the charting impact questions. Mm-hmm. So these are sort of short essay questions asking, what is the organization aiming to accomplish is number one, or what are their key strategies to achieve their goals, and so on. What are the capabilities? How will they know if they're making progress? So really starting to get into some measurement concepts in a qualitative way. All right. Okay, I'm just going to zoom through. Let's jump down to financials. And this, I think, is really rich in interactive data visualization, so that's pretty exciting. So one of our goals here was to really expose a lot of the historical data that we have and hadn't necessarily been sharing very well. So this is that revenue versus expenses visualization that I showed a little bit of the making of behind the scenes. So what's so interesting here is how you can start to see how things shift, and contributions in particular really spiked for the Red Cross in 2002 and also 2006. So this latter one being after Hurricane Katrina. And this makes perfect sense when you think about the timeline and external events, but it's really interesting to see that coming out in the financial data. So we're pretty excited about the potential here. And, of course, this is just one story of many that we're really excited to see how that's going to play out over time.
I think this is awesome. So you can see the year-over-year data and really start to assess the financial stability or the growth or some of the events, and maybe even inspire other questions to ask about this organization, like what was that spike?
Exactly. Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, and it's been really interesting on our side just as we start to visualize some of the information. It's, really interesting things have happened that we were quite hard to tell that were a bit more hidden before. So similarly, we have some common accounting measures down here, so liquidity or months of cash or fringe rate. Some of those are, just quick at a glance, knowing that many expert analysts are, of course, going to be looking at this much more deeply on their own, but it may be useful at a glance as well. Or diving into some funding sources information and having the ability to do some breakouts there. Again, here's that 2006 spike where we grew from about, like $1 billion to $3 billion, it looks like. Pretty amazing. And assets and liabilities and how those match up over time. And again, these are interactive, and you can hover over each year and get a breakout. Okay, and then last but not least in the financial section are, of course, the balance sheet and revenue expenses sheets. So these are, again, available for download for the subscription level, and you can also just get an at-a-glance view quite easily through here. And we also included some little sparkline visualizations just to, again, get a sense of, is this a very constant value, or is it really an episodic feature? So I can find a good, let's see, fixed assets had one data point in here that had a negative value. So, just the stories are going to change by the organization, but we wanted to think about how to make that available to view at a glance. Okay, I'll jump into operations. So these are the pieces of information about, leadership, governance, staff, and contractors, and who all the officers and directors and key employees have been over time. And again, that shows it's by year, and we've graphed it as such, and some information with a bio about the chief executive and a statement if they decided to upload that. It was a long list. Okay, and then highest paid employees, similar, and making that available for an interactive view. And governance is actually this is another of my favorite sections where we've made these board leadership practices questions. This is a section developed in partnership with BoardSource. Actually, this group, they haven't answered them yet, but these are questions that get at how their governance practices happen. Okay, and then in org staff, we had a tiny version of this graph up top, but you get a sense of how the size of their employee base has changed over time. And then the bottom section is some contractors information. And again, that's visualized over time.
All right. This is really exciting. Thank you for demoing all of these really cool features. Do you want to talk any more about any of the process of some of the decisions that went into the choices that we made to maybe put the way the data is organized?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So we did we put a lot of thought and discussion really went into organizing these 4 categories, and the biggest change, I would say, is this emphasis on programs and results. And that comes from a very mission-oriented part of what GuideStar is trying to do, and really thinking about, what is the future of comparing across programs and results, and really thinking about how to get to a way to do quantitative analysis with programs and results data. And we're doing some additional work to develop a GuideStar Platinum level, so that will feed into that section really soon. But I would say that's been a huge change just in how we think about presenting information. We come from the data on the 990, which is largely quantitative and some text-based information, and we're really trying to think about what's that next level that's going to advance the way we as a sector talk about nonprofit information. A second thing to point out is just this emphasis on interactive data visualization. This is really new for us and really exciting. It was just such a treat to dig deep into the historical data, and this was something that brought the entire organization together, just from thinking about what matters most to like the nuts and bolts of like how are we going to pull this off, and what kind of information is lurking deep in the database that we just haven't thought about and haven't pulled forward yet. So this has been huge, and just like big shout outs and kudos to the whole team for pulling this together. And yeah, personally, I'm really excited about the visualization of employees over time. I'll just jump back up to the summary section. I just think this is a really neat way to think about how organizations change. And there's lots of reasons for the fluctuations you might see, but it's just kind of neat to, I think it's a good entree into thinking about how groups evolve.
Yeah.
And yeah.
This is very, very exciting, and I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to launch these new profile pages soon. So I want to be conscious of our time and make sure that we're addressing a few questions from the audience. So Ashley, I'm going to kick it back to you to field some questions from our listeners.
Yes, thank you so much. Krystal and Sarah, that was fantastic. We do have some questions from the audience. One that I keep getting over and over is all the rich information included in each organization's profile, is it derived from the 990 or are there other sources? In other words, I think what we're trying to get at is where does all this data come from, and what are the resources for that information you have on GuideStar that you're using? What are your resources?
Okay, great. So the good news is that we've started to annotate most of the information that we have on the page. So let me just call attention to a couple of spots. So let's see. First, I'll look at this revenue versus expenses box right here. We've tried to include source tags, like just a little footnote of where the data is drawn from for all of the visualizations in particular, because those are hard and fast numbers, and we absolutely understand that figuring out where those came from and what the derivations are is incredibly important. So when in doubt, check on the page and see if there's an annotation there. And then in some cases, we also talk about, we have many tooltips throughout that highlight exactly which part of the 990 this is drawn from. So specifically, this is from Part 8, Line 12.
Very specific.
We are definitely still working on adding more annotations, so that is a great piece of feedback. If anyone finds anything that's a bit mysterious, we want to know, because we want that to be just really clear. So no worries. No one has to worry about where things might have come from. In other places, we absolutely want to encourage nonprofits to update their own information. So we've also got an annotation tag that says GuideStar Nonprofit Profile. And we're actually still working on the exact wording for this to make it really clear that this information came from the nonprofit and they uploaded it themselves to their profile. So the wording there may change, but the concept is we want to make sure when a group has said, our service area is international, and they've told us that.
That means the nonprofit reported directly to GuideStar.
Exactly. Yep, and that's through our nonprofit update program. So those are the places where most of the information comes from. In cases where we only have BMF information on an organization, we will draw directly from that, and we will annotate it accordingly. That's not the case on the Red Cross, so that you don't see the annotation here. But that's another case where we'll change what this tag says. If we're deriving a financial graph that's based on BMF data, we will mark it as such. But yeah, those are the main sources. Again, we're drawing from IRS forms in their various iterations, PF or 990 or BMF information, and the GuideStar nonprofit profile update program. So information directly from the nonprofit, which is usually, it is a mix of qualitative and quantitative information, but we always mark it as such.
So Sarah and Krystal, to update our own profile, do we need a paid subscription? In other words, do we have to pay to update? And also, kind of related along the same lines, what percentage of GuideStar visitors have the free service versus your other services that we offer, Premium and Pro?
Okay. All right, so a two-parter. All right, so first, the question of whether you need to pay to update your profile is a resounding no. That is 100% free, and we absolutely want to make that as easy and just appealing of an option as possible. So the way you would claim a profile if you're from a nonprofit organization is there's a tab at the top called Update Nonprofit Profile, and that will lead you through the process to claim your profile and go ahead and start updating. As an incentive for that, you get, after you've achieved, entered a specific amount of information and achieved a medal level, you are rewarded with
a free subscription to Premium.
Yes, exactly. So that's actually a fantastic path that we encourage every nonprofit to take advantage of, because then you get a chance to really dive deep on not only how your profile looks, because of course you have access to that, but how other groups or in your peer group might look as well. Okay, so that gets at the how you update, and yes, 100% free, and we encourage you to take advantage of that right away. And
the second question is to address that I have heard the statistic that 99% of our users access GuideStar for free. So that's the answer to that. So most of the people that come to our site that access our resources are doing so without any subscription.
And I know
Very
I glossed over
cool.
Yeah. Oh, just let me add one thing, Ashley. I glossed over it pretty quickly as I jumped between these two views, but I hope that it was clear that much of the additional information on the subscription levels is in the financials and operations section and ties into that really rich historic data over time. So that's one big change, which is of great interest if you're doing analysis and comparison, and maybe of less interest if you're a nonprofit just trying to keep your page up to date. So that's one reason that those are separated.
Okay, fantastic. So, burning question here. When will these new profile pages be available? When do they go live?
Yeah, well, the easy answer is that they're technically live now, because you can, using this footer that you see on any profile page on GuideStar, you can jump forward and view the beta version. The other thing I want to call it here is there's a link at the bottom to tell us what you think and take a quick survey. We are actively reviewing the beta feedback right now, and we're just so eager to get everybody's feedback on what's working well, what bugs you might have found, and just generally to make sure things are displaying properly. And then the other thing I want to mention is, we know a redesign is always a little jarring for everybody involved, and even if the changes are good, it feels weird. It's like we've moved the furniture around in your living room, and you're not you have to take a minute to make sure this feels okay. So we totally understand that, and we encourage you to take a little time looking at this beta release. So the short answer is on when they'll be 100% live is we're reviewing the beta feedback. We're going to do a little bit more testing and a little bit more bug fixing, and we're hoping possibly as soon as a few weeks and possibly a little bit longer, we'll be launching these site-wide.
Yes, and we will be promoting when we do launch all over the place. So I'm sure that everyone that's attending this webinar will hear about it. Thank you, Sarah, for giving us this behind-the-scenes look on our design process and for walking through this demo. This is really a wonderful advancement for GuideStar and for our users.
Cool, thank you.
Ashley, any other questions?
I think what we're going to do is we will wrap this up. I have other questions, but I have plenty of people at GuideStar who will get back to you and answer them, because I have some really detailed, fantastic questions. It seems like a lot of you have a lot on your minds here. So we will get back to you. So audience, we covered a lot, as I mentioned. and you will receive an email within a few days with a link to the recording of the event to refer back to as needed. This is, as we mentioned, you are an exclusive audience, so we really value your feedback. And as you know, because you're a supporter of GuideStar, we aspire to be collaborative and supportive leaders in helping people make intelligent decisions about the social sector. So I ask of you, Sarah and Krystal, and your friends at GuideStar, ask that you would be so kind and answer a short survey that's going to pop up in a window as soon as we log off and say goodbye, and that would be super helpful. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us as we continue to provide you better access to better information and tools which will empower the social sector to achieve greater impact and innovation. Have a truly wonderful day and a fantastic holiday season. Thank you and goodbye.